You see, here on Dark Secret Veil, we don't chase fiction. We listen. We collect. We unveil the stories whispered to us by those who have seen too much. These are not stories from horror movies. They are real accounts, confessions, from people who walked among us, professionals, parents, students, travelers, people just like you, who encountered things that defy every explanation. They came to us with trembling hands, emails written at 3 a.m., messages that start with, "You probably won't believe this, but," and end with something far worse. Tonight, we open 5 new files, 5 true cases submitted to the Dark Secret Veil archives. Each one a glimpse into the abyss that hides just behind the ordinary. These are stories of vanished fires, haunted summits, silent screams, and shadows that move when no one's there. Stories that refuse to be understood, that cannot be explained. So, before we begin, ask yourself this: do you really want to know what lies beyond the surface of the world you think you know? If the answer is yes, then make sure you're subscribed to Dark Secret Veil. Hit the notification bell, because what you're about to hear may not just haunt you, it may change the way you view your own life, your own home, your own reality. Horror log initiated. Case files ready for review. Let's begin. It was 3:17 a.m. when he sent the email. No subject line, no greeting, just the words, "I don't think I was ever alone in that office." He'd worked for a private consulting firm in downtown Chicago. The kind of place where everything gleamed: glass walls, silver elevators, fake smiles. He'd been there for years, often staying late to meet deadlines while the rest of the building slept. He used to joke that he could navigate the entire 14th floor with his eyes closed. The low hum of the air conditioning, the faint buzzing of fluorescent lights, the soft glow of the city below, it all became his midnight routine. One night, while preparing a presentation for a client, he noticed something strange on the office's security camera feed. The cameras were motion sensitive, designed to capture movement in empty areas after hours. At 2:46 a.m., the screen blinked. Motion detected, in the boardroom. He froze. The room should have been empty. He switched to the feed, expecting to see a cleaner or maintenance worker. But the figure that appeared wasn't wearing any uniform. It was just standing there. At the far end of the table. Motionless. Facing the wall. He assumed it was a glitch. Maybe a reflection from the city lights. He rewound the footage. But the figure didn't flicker, it moved. When he zoomed in, he noticed the figure's head was slightly tilted, as if listening. And then, it turned. Not toward the camera. Toward him. He blinked, and the feed cut out. Static filled the screen for less than 2 seconds, then returned to an empty room. The next morning, he checked the camera logs. No anomalies. No saved footage. The timestamp for 2:46 a.m. had been overwritten automatically. That's when he started noticing other things. His desk chair would be slightly turned when he came in. The lights would flicker for a moment when he passed the boardroom door. One night, when he was alone again, the motion alarm triggered once more. Same location. Same hour. He went to check in person this time, his phone flashlight cutting through the dim hallway. The boardroom door was open. He swore he'd left it locked. Inside, the air was freezing. Every chair neatly tucked in, except one, pulled back, slightly askew. And on the glossy black table was a single sheet of printer paper. No letterhead. no writing. Just a faint, wet handprint. He turned to leave, but the lights flickered again. For half a second, the reflection on the glass wall showed someone standing behind him. Tall. Still. Staring. He spun around. No one there. But his own chair in his office, down the hall, was now facing the door, as if waiting. He quit the job 2 weeks later. Said he couldn't explain it, didn't want to. The IT team confirmed no footage existed from those nights. Every file had been corrupted by what they called signal interference. The new consultant who replaced him lasted 3 nights before requesting a transfer, citing unusual office activity. That floor has since been permanently closed after a maintenance issue. To this day, building staff say they still hear faint footsteps pacing the boardroom between 2 and 3 a.m., followed by the sound of a chair slowly turning. Some offices never sleep. Some meetings never end. But this was only one case in our archives. There are others, each one more disturbing than the last. Every hospital has its own kind of silence. It's not peaceful, it's heavy. The silence that lives between the beeping monitors, the mechanical breathing machines, and the shuffle of nurses' shoes at 3 in the morning. Dr. RM worked the night shift in an urban hospital in Toronto for almost a decade. Calm, focused, unshakable. He'd seen death more times than he could count. But what he witnessed in room 311 one winter night still keeps him awake. A patient had been brought in just after midnight, a woman in her 50s. No ID, no family, unresponsive. She'd been found in an alley behind a closed diner, shivering, her skin deathly pale. The paramedics said she'd kept repeating something on the way in, "Don't let him find me." Her vitals were weak, but she was alive. Dr. RM stabilized her, started 4 fluids, and ordered scans. Everything seemed routine. Except, her body temperature wasn't responding. It stayed at 29 degrees Celsius. No matter what they did. Over the next hour, nurses reported that her ECG monitor would occasionally flatline, but only for a few seconds. When they rushed in to check, she'd be breathing, her eyes open, staring blankly at the ceiling. At 2:11 a.m., the cardiac monitor beeped again, flatline. But this time, when they entered, the bed was empty. The 4 tubes were still attached, fluids dripping onto the floor. Security was called immediately. They sealed the exits, reviewed the CCTV footage. At 2:10, the cameras showed her lying motionless. At 2:11, static. At 2:12, nothing. The bed empty. They searched the entire ward. Locked rooms, stairwells, morgue, everywhere. At 3:27 a.m., a nurse screamed. She'd found the patient standing in the elevator on the sublevel, unmoving, facing the corner. Her hospital bracelet was missing, and her skin had turned gray. When they approached, the elevator lights flickered, and she was gone. Only the sound of static remained over the intercom, playing for a full minute before fading to silence. Security reviewed the footage again the next day. The timestamp glitched repeatedly. In the corner of the screen, faintly visible during the static, was a tall, indistinct shape standing just behind her in the elevator. The report was filed as an unexplained medical disappearance. The case was never closed. Room 311 has since been sealed. Every attempt to reopen it triggers the fire alarm, though the wiring has been checked over and over again. Not every patient leaves the hospital. Some remain under observation. But our next submission brings the horror much closer to home, because this one didn't happen in an office or a hospital, it happened somewhere we all feel safe. She'd been in the business for 15 years, surveying old lots, assessing abandoned properties, and filing reports for redevelopment projects. Old Hollow Road was just another forgotten corner of the countryside, somewhere between the outskirts of Maryland and nowhere in particular. The trees there grew too close together, their branches twisting into each other like claws. When EL got the assignment, the email was simple. Survey 113 Old Hollow Road. Confirm standing structure. Submit photos and report. But when she arrived, nothing about that place felt right. The GPS froze a half-mile out, her compass spun in circles, and the deeper she drove, the quieter everything became. Even the birds stopped. She found it at 4:23 p.m. A two-story farmhouse, sun-bleached and rotting, sitting in a hollow where fog hung like breath. The roof sagged, the front porch tilted slightly. There were no other homes nearby. She got out of her truck and took her first photograph, except the camera didn't click. The shutter jammed, like something was blocking the lens. When she checked the preview, the image was pure static. So she made her notes manually. Structure standing. Weathered. Windows intact. As she circled the house, she noticed something strange. The grass around the foundation was perfectly still. No wind, no movement. The air felt thick. When she finally stepped inside, the floorboards groaned like they were sighing. The air smelled of damp wood and something else, metallic, sharp. Each room looked frozen in time. A plate on a table still had the faint imprint of food. A chair lay on its side. Upstairs, the wallpaper peeled away like old skin. But every time she tried to take a picture, her camera shut off. Then she noticed something unsettling. The dust, thick everywhere, had two sets of footprints. One was hers. The other led upstairs. She called out, "Hello." No response. The stairs creaked under her weight. Halfway up, her phone buzzed, an alert. Low signal strength. But there was something else on the screen. Her phone's camera had activated on its own, streaming a live view of the room behind her. And in the doorway, something moved. She turned, but the hallway was empty. Only the faint echo of movement above. At the top of the stairs, the footprints stopped. In front of a closed door. She reached for the handle, her breath shaking. The metal was cold, almost icy. When she pushed it open, there was no room, just fog. A wall of gray mist filled the doorway. She stepped back, confused. Looked around again, hallway, stairs, wallpaper, and realized the angle was wrong. The house wasn't matching her notes. Rooms were shifting. When she turned to leave, the staircase was gone. Just a hallway stretching into blackness. She doesn't remember how she got out. Her truck was found idling on the road 2 hours later by a passing patrol officer. The driver's seat was empty, the passenger door open, and her camera lying in the dirt. When they retrieved it, every photo was corrupted, except one. It showed her reflection in a window, but standing behind her in that reflection was the house. The same house. The same window. Except the official county records say 113 Old Hollow Road was demolished in 1971. It never should have been there. Some houses aren't built to be lived in. Some are built to remember. But there was another case, one far more intimate, and far more haunting. This next confession didn't come from the woods or a forgotten road. It came from inside a home where comfort should have been guaranteed, but wasn't. She said it started on a Tuesday night, the kind of night where the air is too still, and silence feels heavy. Her youngest, Emma, was barely 10 months old. A good sleeper. Always calm. But that night, at 1:42 a.m., the baby monitor crackled to life. Not the usual coos or whimpers. Just a faint voice. At first, she thought it was interference. Maybe picking up a neighbor's radio. But the voice wasn't singing or talking. It was whispering. The next morning, she checked the monitor's history. The audio file had automatically recorded the sound clip. When she played it back, the whisper was clearer. It said her daughter's name. Twice. She told her husband, who brushed it off. Said monitors glitch all the time. But 2 nights later, the same thing happened, this time, at 1:42 a.m. again. Same whisper. Same voice. She tried everything, reset the device, changed its frequency, even replaced it with a new one. But every night at exactly 1:42, it would activate by itself. One night she stayed awake, sitting in the nursery in the dark, waiting. The glow from the nightlight painted soft shadows on the walls. At 1:41, nothing. At 1:42, the monitor lit up. And the whisper returned. But this time, it didn't say the baby's name. It said, "You shouldn't have moved her crib." The air in the room dropped. She could see her breath. Then came a sound, soft knocking, from inside the wall. 3 taps. Slow. Measured. From directly behind the crib. She grabbed her baby and ran into the hallway. The knocking continued, louder now, like someone crawling behind the drywall. Her husband ripped the panel open the next morning, certain they'd find a raccoon or some pipes rattling. But behind the wall was a sealed space, about 4 feet deep. Dust, cobwebs, and a small wooden rocking chair. Child-sized. Old. No one had ever told them the house once belonged to a daycare operator. The city records showed the property had been vacant for nearly a decade before they moved in. But there was one final entry on that daycare's license, dated March 12, 1986. Child missing. Case unresolved. The girl's name was Emma. She stopped using the monitor. Slept with her daughter in the same room. But even without it, she could still hear the faint whisper through the walls around 1:42 a.m. Always the same tone. And sometimes, when she checked the baby's room in daylight, the rocking chair, still locked behind the drywall, would be creaking on its own. Some voices never fade. They only wait for someone to listen again. But the final case in tonight's archive, it's different. Because this one doesn't involve a haunted place, or a restless ghost, it involves something far older. Something that watches. He'd seen things most people could never stomach, crime scenes, car wrecks, the aftermath of violence that left silence in its wake. MC was a forensic photographer for a metropolitan police department in the Midwest. He described his job as clinical, detached. You look through the lens, document the evidence, capture the truth. You don't feel. You don't think. But one case changed that. The file was marked, Homicide, Residence 74B/closed. Routine. Except it wasn't. It was a two-story townhouse on the city's west side. The victim, a middle-aged man, found seated upright in a chair. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. MC arrived early, before dawn, to capture the preliminary photos. The only light came from his flash, cutting through the shadows like white fire. Every time he snapped a photo, he thought he saw something in the periphery, reflections, perhaps, like eyes, watching him from behind the glass picture frames on the wall. He ignored it. Focused on the work. Then he reached the hallway mirror. He lifted his camera, adjusted the focus, and froze. In the mirror, there was a reflection of the victim in the chair, but his head was turned toward the camera. The body hadn't moved. The head hadn't turned. But the reflection was staring straight at him. He blinked, stepped closer. The image in the glass shifted slightly, like water rippling. He took another photo, and when the flash went off, he saw more faces. Not just one reflection, but dozens, pressed against the inside of the mirror's surface. Pale, distorted, eyes wide open as if gasping for light. He stumbled back, tripped over his equipment bag, and the camera went off again, capturing a final image just before he hit the floor. When he checked the playback screen, the photo was perfectly clear. And in that photo, the reflection of his own face had eyes that weren't his. He tried to explain it away, lighting tricks, fatigue, residual trauma. But every time he processed the photos later, something new appeared in the images. Tiny details. Shadows that weren't in the original frame. A hand, sometimes, resting on a shoulder that wasn't there before. He stopped taking crime scene photos for a while, took up private freelance work. But the phenomenon followed him. No matter what he photographed, weddings, landscapes, portraits, somewhere in every image, a pair of eyes stared back. Sometimes they appeared in reflections, windows, water, chrome. Other times, in places they shouldn't exist at all, like the fabric of a curtain or the bark of a tree. And when he tried to ignore them, something worse began. The eyes started appearing without the camera. One night, he was editing photos in his home office. He turned off the lights, leaned close to his monitor. The glow of the screen reflected faintly in the glass frame beside him, an old family photo. But there was an extra figure in the reflection. Standing directly behind him. He turned instantly. Nothing. But the next morning, when he checked his latest photo set, he noticed it again, this time clearer. In every image taken that night, a figure was visible just over his shoulder. Watching. He stopped working altogether after that. Moved out of the city. Deleted every file, smashed every lens, and burned the photographs in a metal bin behind his house. He thought it would end there. But 2 weeks later, his neighbor found something in their yard, a half-burnt piece of photo paper, the edges curled. It showed MC's living room, empty. Except in the corner of the image, half in shadow, a pair of human eyes were visible, looking straight at the camera. The photo was dated 1 week after he destroyed his equipment. MC was never seen again. Some things don't want to be seen. Others only exist because we looked. But the deeper question is, what if those eyes were never in the pictures at all? What if they were in him? These 5 confessions remind us of something simple and terrifying. No matter who we are, doctor, consultant, surveyor, mother, photographer, we all encounter moments that defy reason. Moments where reality fractures, and something slips through. We call them coincidences, glitches, shadows. But what if they're not? What if they're proof that our world isn't sealed tight, that the veil between us and the unknown is thinner than we'd like to believe? From offices haunted by unseen watchers, to patients who disappear without dying, to houses that rebuild themselves from memory, to voices that refuse to stop calling, and eyes that never stop watching. These are not legends. They're records. And the moment you finish listening, one may already have found you. Keep your eyes open. Keep your lights on. And whatever you do, don't ignore the sound behind you when you think you're alone. Because some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to wait. If you've experienced something you can't explain, something that's haunted you, share your confession below. It might be featured in a future horror log. Subscribe to Dark Secret Veil. Hit the notification bell. Because next time, what you hear might not just be a story. This has been Dark Secret Veil. Until next time, keep your wits about you. You never know who or what is watching.